am honoured and privileged to invite Mr. Boris Johnson to address the Balfour dinner. Mr. Johnson.
Well, thank you so much for that extremely generous and broadly accurate introduction. And what a pleasure it is to be here again in Israel. It's 10 years since I was last having dinner in Tel Aviv in the company of Yair Lapid, who's here with us. And it was actually such a riotous occasion then that I'm afraid we ended up dancing on the tables and singing karaoke and generally misbehaving. And I thought it's absolutely true, and I thought it had all been forgotten until quite recently my friend Lord Ashcroft, of whom some of you may have heard. Do you know who I mean by Lord Ashcroft? Michael Ashcroft. He came up to me and he said in his most terrifying whisper, "I know you enjoyed yourself in that restaurant in Tel Aviv. I have the photos." And that's what he said. And I have no idea what photos he was talking about and whether any animals were involved at all. But I can say whatever took place that evening was entirely kosher, my friends. Well, my experience of Israel, and Stuart was at the same dinner, so I'd like to know whether you've got the photos, Stuart. Have you? I want to know what they are. My experience of Israel, my first attempt to contribute to the Anglo-Israeli economic partnership took place long before that, of course, when I was about 20 years old, and I came to work, I'm proud to say, on a kibbutz, and they rightly decided that the only possible use for my talents was to put me in the washing up department, and I would stand there in despair, surrounded by steam as this clanking conveyor belt emerged from the machine in a very great lick, and my job was to get the dirty stuff off and the clean stuff on for 8 hours a day. While everyone else was out, riding horses or picking oranges around the Sea of Galilee and having a wonderful time. And I felt a bit like Charlie Chaplin in modern times, unable to get the right crockery in the right compartments before it all slid away from me. And at that moment, I have to say, even at that idealistic age, I harbored doubts about the economic efficiency of any business that employed me in this way. And it was only recently that I read with some sadness, but no real surprise, that this wonderful kibbutz has now more or less abandoned, I'm sad to say, the collective communitarian features of that place. They no longer rely on people like me, perhaps because I was so spectacularly useless. But I have this consolation. Like everybody else, I have read, thanks to the great former ambassador to London, where's he? Daniel, who gave me a copy of, thank you Daniel, who gave me a copy of Startup Nation 2 years ago, and I know that change partly reflects what's happened to the Israeli economy and the amazing things that have happened, and the movement, as President Shimon Peres has so elegantly put it, from oranges to apple, so to speak. And I know that this is the most fertile soil for startups anywhere in the world, with more than 3,500. I know that Israel has 63 companies on the NASDAQ, more companies on the London Stock Exchange, I was proud to announce this morning, than any other country in the world. Absolutely amazing. And the highest density of innovative businesses anywhere outside Silicon Valley. Now, you know all this stuff, folks, and I'm not going to recapitulate it, but the question is not what's going on, but why. Why is there this amazing inflorescence of technology in this part of the world? And I think I can speak authoritatively on this after, well, what is it now? I arrived at 2 o'clock in the morning after a few hours in Israel, because the reasons for the success of modern Israel are often identical to the reasons for the success of modern London, which is the city as someone's kindly pointed out, I'm the mayor of. We in London are also a formidable tech hub. In fact, we are by far the biggest in Europe, and the speed of growth has been just as dizzying. When I became mayor in 2008, there were only 15 firms at what we call Silicon Roundabout. there are now round about 40,000 firms in London. I don't know where I claim credit, of course, for this great explosion of the tech business on a sort of post hoc, ergo propter hoc basis. But well, thank you for that applause. I wish I'd done more to deserve it. It really happened in spite of me. I didn't really understand it to begin with, and we've now got more than 200,000 people in London employed in tech of all kinds. We've got fintech, medtech, edtech, green tech, nanotech, adtech, film tech, biotech, and tech, and it is expanding the whole time. And when I look at what is happening in London and in Israel, and this is the serious point of my speech, I ask myself, why do some societies innovate and not others? Why are some societies so creative and not others? I think the first answer, obviously, is that you need to attract the innovators. You need to be welcoming, and both London and Israel, the society is built on immigration, with all the cross-pollination of ideas that brings. And I'm proud to say that I'm now when I began as mayor of London, I was mayor of the sixth biggest French city on earth. Now, thanks to the taxation policies of the French government, I'm proud to say I'm mayor of the fourth biggest French city on earth. We have more than Nantes, we have more than Bordeaux, more than Strasbourg, for heaven's sake. And I'm mayor of the sixth biggest Italian city, the 12th biggest Russian city, the second biggest Jewish city in Europe, of course. And we're catching up Paris very fast, by the way. Our population is growing. And then there are all sorts of other ingredients that make up this rich loam of innovation. You need great universities. Got them here, yes, right? Universities, yes, got them in London, 4 of the world's top 100. You need access to smart financiers and the money men, capital markets. You got that here, yes? We got it, absolutely. Still the biggest financial centre anywhere in the world. You know that in London? More people in financial services in London even than in New York. And I'm told more banks, more American banks incorporated in London than there are in New York itself. It's a statistic I find very hard to believe, but I'm told it's true by London and partners. And of course, you need a wonderful place to live. And one of the great things I've discovered today is how much I share in ambition, and how much I've unconsciously modelled myself on the work of Ron Haldi, the mayor of Tel Aviv, who seems to have done wonderful work in making this place clean and safe and lovely and attractive. He's got just bicycles everywhere, and which I thoroughly approve. I don't know whether your bicycles came in before or after our bicycles. Before? No. Well, there you go. No. Stuart Pollard shaking his head there. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, bicycles. I nicked them from Paris, if I'm totally honest, and they nicked them from Lyon. Lyon nicked them from Barcelona. So if you nick them from London, I don't mind at all. That's what great cities do. They nick ideas from each other. So you need high quality of life. You need a clean, safe, lovely place to live. And crime in London, by the way, for anybody who know London can testify, it is down very substantially over the last 8 years, to pick a period entirely at random. It's down by about 20%. The murder rate has been roughly reduced by 50%. Crime on buses in London, I'm delighted to say, bus crime is down by 40%. As I say, crime on buses, not crime committed by buses, which is very, very, very rare indeed. And all sorts of other ways, London is getting more attractive to live in. Air quality. All our people now care about air quality passionately, and we've had huge success in improving sometimes when they have bad air quality episodes in Britain these days, the air in Norfolk is worse than it is in London. Can you believe that? Because of the pestilential vapours that come over from the Low Country, pig farming operations and so on. And it's absolutely true. And the day will not be far off when children are bussed in from Norfolk to inhale the clean gulfs of London air at Hyde Park Corner. All those things matter. They matter. And you've got it here in Tel Aviv. We've got it. You've got it here in Israel. You've got it. Care for the quality of life. You've got it in London. And then, of course, to get the techies to come to our city, you also need what we might loosely call the vibe, the atmosphere that goes with lovely clubs and pubs and bars and night spots of the kind that I know that Yair Lapid frequents and which he and I enjoyed together. Then what else do you need? You need an entrepreneurial culture, and I think it's fair to say over the last 40 years, both of our societies have been on an intellectual journey away from state socialism, both towards a strong belief in free markets. All that's true, entrepreneurial, but there's something else, isn't there? There's something else that you need to have a spirit of innovation, or at least innovation on the scale, with a profusion that you see in Israel and in London today. And what is that thing? You've heard about, come on, has anybody been focusing on this speech at all? It begins with D. Oh, okay, let me tell you. It's fashionable now to say that Francis Fukuyama was wrong all those years ago, and that we are seeing in some places in the world that you can have free market capitalism without democracy. An example beginning with C, for instance. And it is certainly the case that there are some, as I say, some highly productive capitalist systems that are not operating within a pluralist democratic framework. But if you can have capitalism without democracy, and I think probably you can, that seems to be the evidence, I don't think it automatically follows that you can have innovation without democracy, or certainly not rampant innovation of the kind that permeates Israel and London today. Because let me ask you, who are the innovators in any society? Who are the innovators? They're the people who want to challenge the way things are. They're the people who want to try to do something new. That's who they are by definition. They're prepared to take a risk, to be difficult, to be provocative, to be disruptive. A society that is willing to put the voters first is more likely to be one that is willing to put the consumer first. A society that is willing to change governments is more likely to be willing to embrace change of all kinds. Are you following this argument? In other words, what I'm saying is that a truly innovative society is more likely to be one where the techies are not just as they are in both our cities, just trendy and young with nose studs and using fixed wheel bicycles. Maybe that's more in London than here in Tel Aviv. Not just young and trendy and all the rest of it, but coming from a society where there is argument and exchange and debate. A society, in short, that is free. A society that is plural and open. And to get to the point of this speech, almost a century after the Balfour Declaration, it did almost a century, 98 years after the Balfour Declaration, a free society here in this part of the Middle East, that is the most extraordinary legacy. A free and an open society. That is the most amazing result of what is, after all, when you read it closely, a masterpiece of Foreign Office fudge and double speak. Never mind. But that is why we should be eternally grateful to that languid pseudo-philosopher Arthur J. Balfour. Because whatever the criticisms of Israel may be, some of them justified, some of them less so. And even if it is a tragic fact that the Balfour Declaration has been more fulfilled in the protasis than in the apodosis, if you see what I mean. Yeah? I don't think anybody's going to dispute that. I.e. more in the first clause than in the saving clause, right? It is still the case that the first clause of that declaration was a wonderful thing. And it is still the case that Israel is the only, or by far the most democratic country in the region, the only free country, and in my view, the only pluralist society. And that's why I believe, and that's why I have believed ever since I came here as a young man, I believe so fervently in this country, and that is why I reject completely, by the way, the suggestion that people all day have been asking me the same question in the media. I reject completely the suggestion by some corduroy-jacketed, snaggle-toothed lefty academics in the UK. And I've got nothing against, by the way, I've got nothing against corduroy jackets or indeed snaggle-teeth, before I get totally massacred by the media. That is why I completely reject the suggestion that of all the countries in the Middle East, of all the countries in this part of the world, that this one, which is the one that is free and open and democratic, should be the subject of a boycott. I just think that is absolutely ludicrous. And that, in my view, is why Israel is the greatest innovator in the region, and perhaps the greatest innovator on earth. And that's practically what I'm doing here in your wonderful city. That's why I'm here. We're here to build on a partnership that is growing every year, now worth £5 billion in trade, growing the whole time, Stuart, isn't it? And a wonderful contract signed. Well done, El Al, deciding to buy Rolls-Royce jet engines. You won't go wrong. We will be the wind beneath your wings, my friends. And it's fantastic to see that I've got a big delegation with me of tech companies from London. They are bringing back, or a huge lot of companies are going back to London to take up ideas and build investments there. And it would be invidious as I reach the peroration of this, as we come to the end of this otherwise harmonious speech, to try to decide now, having advertised the merits of these twin cities of innovation, these twin capitals of innovation, to try to ask you to decide which of the two is the more innovative. Because I know, I must kneel humbly before the record of Israel, devising absolutely everything you can possibly imagine, from the Uzi submachine gun to the USB, whatever it does, memory stick, to the epilator lady shave, a very, very vital piece invented in Israel, in common with many other things. But I want to put it to you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, at this historic Balfour Declaration dinner, that you should not forget that there is another city that has a rival claim to be the home of scientific innovation. Where was the first television set in the world ever turned on? It was in London, in a room above what is now the Bar Italia in Frith Street in Soho. Where was the world's first cash machine? London, I think. Enfield, 1960. Where was the world's first machine gun? London. If you're following the argument closely, I can tell. In Hatton Garden in London. Where was penicillin invented? Anybody know where penicillin was invented? Whereabouts in London? Paddington, absolutely. Whereabouts in Paddington? In Parade Street, absolutely. Parade Street in Paddington. Very useful thing to have after a night out in Parade Street. So I'm given to understand. And finally, what was the most important? Of all the amazing biotech ventures and breakthroughs that we're seeing take place both in Israel and in London, what was the one that made them all possible? What is the ancestor of all these breakthroughs? Not radar, no, and I'm thinking about but what was the most important scientific insight of the last 200 years? Not the internet. And even more important, that for an understanding of man's true place in the cosmos, by the way, a point of view that is rejected in many parts of the Middle East and indeed in large parts of America. That's right. It is the theory of evolution. And where was Charles Darwin? Well done. Give that lady a coconut. Where was Charles Darwin? He was in Bromley. Thank you so much, Mr. Shipman. He was in Bromley, and have you ever been to Bromley? Who here is from Bromley? Fantastic. Well, look, when you meet the people of Bromley and you behold their natural, physical, and intellectual advantages, you understand how Charles Darwin formulated the doctrine of natural selection and survival of the fittest. That is London, the home of scientific innovation. But I think, and I'm going to draw my remarks to a conclusion with this point, I think you will agree that sometimes the greatest breakthroughs in London's history have come when we have seen the London environment combined with Jewish scientific brilliance. Do you not agree? Who came up with the theory of the nuclear chain reaction? It was Leo Szilard, an emigre Jewish physicist who was in a taxi in Holborn when actually one taxi hit his taxi from behind him and his taxi bumped into another. That's absolutely true. And he thought, my God, chain reaction. amazing. Who has just come up with, talking of taxis, who has just come up with an app, with a computer app to allow black cabs to respond finally to the challenge of Uber? It's called Get Taxi. That's absolutely right. It's called Get Taxi, originating here in Israel. A wonderful thing. Who in 1860, I'll end with this point, who in 1860 had the idea of dipping cod or haddock in batter and serving it with fried chipped potatoes, so creating the national dish of the United Kingdom? Who was it? Who innovated on that prodigious scale? It was a Jewish immigrant called Joseph Malins, folks, and I rest my case. There you go. We've had all those things. Fission, nuclear fission, silicon chips, and fish and chips. And you knew that was coming. And that is the essence of the partnership that we have. And it's a partnership, of course, that is in many ways about innovation, but and to get back to the serious point of my speech, I believe that spirit of innovation is only possible in our two societies, only possible in London and in Israel, because of the values we share. And my belief, my friends, is that those values are by no means trivial. They are not uncontested around the world. They are often under siege, and indeed they are under siege sometimes in this place. And that is why it is all the more important that we should defend those values and defend them together. Thank you very much indeed for listening to me this evening. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We don't have, it seems, many friends in the world. We feel a wind of cold isolation, and I can't begin to tell you, and I'm sure I speak for everyone in the room, what it means to us, Mr. Mayor, that you've come here tonight and you have told us that we're doing it right. I was even a little amused by you defining democracy here as that we go to elections very often, because that's true, and if that's the case, we're very democratic. It is a great pleasure that we've had you with us. We appreciate you being here, and especially that you recognize the kind of challenges we have. It's wonderful to hear that Britain is against the boycott. Many of us have young people still in England who are at university, and they have a very, very difficult and challenging time. So it means a lot to us when you say to us that Britain's against the boycott. Thank you for being with us. You've made our evening. Thank you.